2, 1, 0.
LVM3 M4 rocket का.
Hi, welcome to the VWP. So it's two areas that are very close to my heart: manufacturing, defense, and Make in India.
Much before the Make in India, became such a big tagline, we were made in India with pride. Precision approach radar. This is like a radar which gives the path 30 kilometers away from the runway, so the pilot is able to land blindfold. It's that precise. It was like magic. Everything worked with precision. These are all subsystems of the BrahMos launcher, the fire control system. We were the only ones who qualified. We passed all of it. Finally, they had to give us the order because we became the resultant single vendors. DRDO has been a great partner. This is specifically meant only for ISRO. And all of them are again trained there and they come and certify. Goes into the Gaganyaan satellite. Even today, I would say we're a 40-year-old startup.
Do you think starting up then and starting up today is a lot easier? Hi, welcome to the VWP, and today I'm most excited to be doing my first podcast in a manufacturing facility. So happy to have you with us.
Thank you so much.
Rekha, and I think you're such an inspiration at so many counts. So an absolute pleasure. Thank you for doing this for us.
No, I should thank you. I mean, you felt that I was worthy of an interview like this, and thank you very much.
Why not? So it's two areas that are very close to my heart: manufacturing, defense, and Make in India. I think, Make in India has been such a path-breaking change that's happened. But before we get into all of this, we're right next to the precision approach radar.
Yes, that is right.
Okay.
An epitome of, Make in India.
Yeah. Tell us something about this.
Yeah. Precision approach radar is something, it's like a pilot aid. This is installed in all the Navy and Air Force, runways.
Okay.
To help pilots land during adverse weather. Okay, war time doesn't tell you that it's foggy, so I can't land, etc. Right? So what this does is, this is like a radar which gives the path to a pilot 30 kilometers away from the runway and helps him land.
Just navigate.
Yeah, navigate and land. So the pilot is able to land with blindfold. It's that precise.
Okay.
So that's why it's called the precision approach radar.
It's indigenously made,
completely
designed by data patterns.
Yes, that's right. So we built to the specs that were given in the tender condition. At that point in time, again in the year 2014, like I said, we were allowed to quote for MOD tenders, which was not possible, a few years before that, because only foreigners were allowed to participate in MOD tenders, which had NCNC trials, which had big products. So India having, the ecosystem in India was lacking in, products like this. Okay. So it was a subject of only the bigwigs. Post independence, as government decided that it should, in Atmanirbharta or whatever that is called, they said industry will be given a chance, but then all the public sectors, during Nehru's age, I think he brought in the public sectors, right?
Yeah.
So they were given the opportunity to build systems for the country.
Okay.
And research and whatever it is was given to in the defense ecospace. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So the DRDOs, that is the Defense Research Laboratories, would do, product product designing, and then give it to all agencies and things like that, and
Understand.
and build the product,
Understand.
and then give it to the PSUs on nomination, and they will build the whole system and give it to the armed forces.
Got it. Got
Okay,
it.
but later on, what happened is, MOD tenders, of course, were global.
So when we talk about MOD tenders, we're talking about Ministry of Defense directly.
Directly, yes.
Okay.
That is for the Army, Navy, and the Air Force.
Okay.
That
Yeah.
those all the three come under the Ministry of Defense.
So till 2014, a private entity couldn't give a tender directly.
Not directly,
Not
but
directly.
then some of it, like L&T and Tata would tie up with the foreigners, and
understood.
then quote for tenders.
Understood.
All right.
Understood.
So later on, what happened is, to post 2014, it was very heartening, for people like us,
Yeah.
when they opened it out only to Indians. They said only Indians can quote, but the foreigners can quote through an Indian partner.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so it
that's like a dramatic
it
change.
was like a total change
Yeah.
in the scenario. So the foreigners started tying up with Indian companies where, it could be either 50-50 or 60-40, but 60% had to be shown as indigenous,
Indigenously
manufactured or designed, or whatever it is. 60% content had to be shown as indigenous.
Understood.
Okay, so
Understood.
foreigners would bring in their equipment, and of course the software and the mechanical structure, or even whatever was required for the infrastructure, they would get the Indians to do it. So that was the path that they took. So Rangarajan, the CEO, so he said, no, I think we should get into MOD directly, because we have, he's always been very passionate about product building. And he said, we have to do this. We have all the piece parts. We have done pieces of everything. Now let's put it all together and build a system. So we, for the software, we didn't have the software at that point in time. So we went with a Czech partner. Okay. So we quoted through our Czech partner, and they said, okay, technically we had to, there is a process to the MOD tenders also. So you have to first technically qualify. Okay, they will come and do an extensive inspection of your facility, of your capability, of your documentation, etc.
Right.
And then qualify you to actually go through with the tender. That is when they'll, there is an RFI.
This is like a pre-qualification to the
there
tender.
is an RFI, then there is an RFP, then there is an RFQ.
Oh.
Okay,
What is RF?
RFI is request for information.
Okay,
Then request for RFP is proposal. Okay, and then RFQ is quote.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow. And this
Okay.
is where I think what you mentioned about the NC trial, was it for
that's
this?
Right. No. Not just for this alone.
Right.
All of it had to go through NC trials. See, the foreign companies, of course, had products available, whereas in India, I mean, or products were not really available to show MOD. See, when you're at war or when you're buying something for the defense, I mean, you also should understand that they want products, They'll not say, okay, I will help you build, and then I will put it in and things like that. So they said, look, we need products. Okay, if I want something now, I should be in a position to put it in place as soon as I, open the quote or whatever it is. Okay. So because of that, they started looking at NC trials where they could see that is no cost, no commitment. That is what
no commitment. So the company has to put in the money and
they
build.
have to feel the product. So the product should already be available.
So this is something you'll build
We
through
built,
an NCNC.
yes, for an NCNC.
To the specs.
To the spec. And of course, the software came from the Czech company. And we also learnt along with them, So we said, okay, let's build this. Some of us were, very scared because this required, a whole lot of, not just capital alone. It was also resources, okay? And almost, we were about 400 people at that point in time. Almost 150 people were working for this. So that was a big risk that,
people took.
Yes. It was not just the money. It was also the resources. And we were so sure that we could crack this because, we said we will be qualified. That was our first aim. We said, okay, we'll first qualify. Then we said we will look at how to quote because when you develop or design everything indigenously, you become that much cheaper because any foreign product, well, they give it to your Indian partner. The Indian partner also has his own,
Share of
built up, cost, etc. and things like that. So we said, okay, when our quotation goes, well, probably we will be much cheaper because we have designed everything here. So the product is fully Indian. So that was how, we strategized. That was our strategy. Yes.
Phenomenal. I think, I don't know, it takes so much courage, vision.
Absolutely. Courage is what I would say. And it is that, that risk that you take and the reward is so high, right? Risk to reward. I don't think he took the risk just for the reward. He said, look, I have to build it. It has to be in India. And, much before the Make in India, became such a big tagline, we were made in India with pride.
Wow.
That was our tagline.
Wow.
Right from the 2000s.
Wow.
So he said, I should be a true blue Indian company and make products. So that was his dream, So it came true. When we qualified, we were the only ones who qualified, qualified all the FET conditions. We passed all of it. And the rest of them couldn't show one or the other, So finally what happened is they had to qualify us. I mean, they had to give us the order because we became resultant single vendors.
Wow.
Wow. So, that was a very, but it was quite difficult at that point in time because, the others also wanted a second or a third trial to, overcome whatever that they had missed.
How long would this have taken? It
took 2 years.
It took 2 years.
Yeah, it took 2 years. The whole process, that is the demonstration. 2014, no, I wouldn't say 2014. We started building in 2015. 2016 was the trial.
The FT.
The FET. That was in Visakhapatnam. And our people were there for almost, 2 months because you cannot radiate. You can't radiate anywhere. So the Air Force and Navy airports were very, very kind to us. The Air Force airport here in Arakonam and in, this place in Visakhapatnam, they said, look, we will give you an opportunity to come there, set up the whole thing and do some little R&D, whatever it is, do your radiation, capture flights, and then, you're ready for your trials. So that way, there was a lot of support, which also came from, yes, that's right.
When we take one step, I think, the universe conspires and
absolutely. I was just coming to that. Finally on the trial day, we were all having our fingers crossed, and because the previous night there were some glitches. Okay, I mean, as a product which is an R&D product, there are quite a few things that you need to tie up, and we were all having sleepless nights, I would say. Like you said, the whole universe conspires and then helps you build it. So it all worked. It was like magic.
A dream come true. Really, my God, I'm getting goosebumps.
Magic. I already have goosebumps. So it was like magic that, everything worked with precision. So, and when they saw it, they were really thrilled. The people who did the trials, who were the officers in charge of the FET, they were really thrilled. Looking at, what have you built? It's so nice. We are so happy, is what they said, and because without their encouragement, it is not possible, right? So I think in a lot of ways, it gave us an impetus to do more and more because they were also pushing us, saying, make it in India.
Wow.
We'll be very happy to take whatever is made in India.
Yeah.
And once we won the tender, it changed
the
dynamics of the organization because we didn't have this at that time. The hangar was not even built at that point. So we had, we built this hangar keeping this in mind. So that's why it's called the Par Hangar.
It's called the Par Hangar. Can you give our audience like a brief overview of what is data patterns? What does it do? It's a product solutions company, but how does it work?
Okay. So we are essentially into design. Design and manufacturing is what we do. Design and manufacturing of defense electronic systems. Okay, we were hitherto a defense electronics company. We were into subsystems. Okay, we were allowed to build only subsystems. We were not allowed to build systems, total systems. So we started off as a subsystems company, and then we have now grown into a systems company. Okay, so system is nothing but all these subsystems put together and in a, in a form factor.
You take a full solution
then
to
you
the
give it.
outside world.
That is right. So these are all total systems.
Total systems.
Okay, the subsystems are over there. I'll show you. The smaller modules which go into another, product. So we have several domains. That is, one is our board design. Then we have our PCB design domain. Then we have our RF and microwave, which is, radio frequency and microwave. Okay, that. All these things encompass whatever are the electronics inside. That is right. Then we have the FPGA. Then we have so many different, we have the software domains. Okay, we have real-time software written. Then we have the driver development. We have kernel. We have algorithms. We have to write so many things, right? So we have a huge software, division.
So you have a horizontal, vertical.
We have a horizontal where we have all our domains.
Okay.
We have a project which takes on the system design.
Understood.
Okay, so the system design defines what is required by the domains.
Pieces of this you will need to put into the system.
And so the project actually encompasses, or it cuts through. It's like a matrix structure, so it cuts through all the, domains. And once the product is designed, they actually give it out to this side, which is the manufacturing.
Understood.
So the boards are manufactured. Okay, design is ours totally. So the boards are manufactured, and the products, the mechanical, we have a huge mechanical team which actually designs all the form factors. Okay, the
look and feel of the
absolutely. The form factor, which is your shells. Okay, so it has to have. The thermal has to be taken care of because electronics, there's a lot of heat. Right? There is a hell of a lot of precision that is required even when you design, a system, a mechanical system.
Understood.
Because you'll have to dissipate, you've got to dissipate the heat.
Understood.
And then you have to look at thermal management through whatever, giving it cold air, etc., sucking the hot air out, etc. So, mechanical design, it's like your house, you have to design it in such a way that air flows. Correct? And it doesn't, ventilation is required, right? So to have your oxygen in place and all that. So that's how we built our systems. So there's a mechanical team which designs, but we get them fabricated outside. Okay. So that's how it is. And these are all, as a matter of fact, these are all subsystems of the BrahMos launcher. The fire control system, okay, which I'll tell you a big story. I don't know if you
hear about the BrahMos today for sure. That's part of my questions for sure.
It's a very long story, Vilasini. So I will tell you all that. It's again, it gives me goosebumps because we again competed against the bigwigs. And
I think that is so beautiful in your journey that I think. Just because of the vision and rigor of one person, I don't know if I should say this, but you've outbeaten the biggies in their own capacity.
I wouldn't know whether we have outbeaten, but we've given them a competition.
You've given them a tough competition of being a completely homegrown product.
Absolutely. DRDO has been a great partner. Even today, DRDO is our very big customer. Okay, so they also look at us as a valued customer. Valued partner.
So you also went public in this period.
Yes.
I think that's such a phenomenal
really something that we were always dreaming of because Rangarajan, he always said, the way to go is going public. Because he said that is when we'll de-risk ourselves. And we said, we had a lot of our employees who've been long-termers with us. Okay. And he said, look, there should be value creation, there should be wealth creation. And if I have to, if they have to see value, okay, it's also through wealth, right? It's not just knowledge that you gain or the kind of job that you do. There's also a certain, wealth that you can create. So he said, this is the only way that, you can make them participate. And they were co-owners. We had given them ESOPs, not ESOPs, ESPS. In 2021. Oh my God. You should have seen the kind of, the pride that they all had. Because, we were you can call data patterns the best kept secret.
Huh.
We were not known much.
Known to the
Nobody
outside
knew anything about us. There's nothing much in the public domain.
world.
So, even people started talking about data patterns because there was a lot of buzz in the
Yeah,
market
yeah.
or
yeah.
in the media and the investors, etc.
Hmm.
So what happened is when people started recognizing us, it's validation, right? Even with family, it's a validation. When you say I work for data patterns and this is who we are, and your MD is speaking on TV or whatever it is. So the boys were absolutely thrilled when they delighted to see data patterns somewhere else, where they had envisaged or they wanted, because all of them have stuck to us. There was a time there was a time when all these multinationals were coming and picking our guys. I've gone through attrition, which is at a 30%. And from 30%, and today I must say that it is less than 5%.
Wow, that's phenomenal.
Yeah. Has really helped in terms of each
Brand
one
building,
has not just
recognition,
brand, but they've also
seen money.
the wealth that is it's given them an extra set of wings and to build their dream houses or to purchase a dream car or to elevate themselves, and not just in terms of money, but in terms of stature. I think that was very important.
This
for
has
all
also
of
been a very beautiful India story over the last decade.
Correct.
So many homegrown companies going public, wealth creation.
Yes.
It's uplifted an entire generation.
Correct. So you can, today you hear a lot about startups.
Yeah.
And then startups, selling an idea or a product, and then taking it public and all that. We've been a startup for a very long time.
You've been startup for a very. I agree.
Every time we behaved like a startup. Even today, I would say we're a 40-year-old startup.
That's the best place to be. I think then we are nimble. Then we want to learn.
Correct.
Want to keep growing.
So when we started, actually we thought that every product that we build or a subsystem that we build or the thing that we give we'll go laughing to the bank. That really didn't happen. So we were building and we had to sustain also, right? So we started looking at building it, but what really we realized later on is the systems that we build ultimately go into something else, and that has to be that goes through extensive trials, and until then this product
doesn't see the light of day.
Yes. And by then we had already taken so many people. There were so many, engineers.
What was your strength at that point?
The strength was about 700 and odd people at that point in time. 10, because we were more focused on R&D, right? Manufacturing was a thin manufacturing line even at that point in time. But my design team was large again because we were into design, through the DRDO, we were more into designing products.
Understood.
Prototypes.
Understood.
Not real products.
Understood.
Okay. So once that happened, realization hit us that this product alone we cannot, depend on. So we were spreading ourselves thin. Wherever we saw a potential, we would go there and then put our hands into that. But ISRO at that point in time was giving us those steady orders, by then. So we were dependent on ISRO and also BrahMos. By then, 2010, we had already, settled with BrahMos. So BrahMos was also like our bread and butter. At least something to eat. So there was food on the table. So it was BrahMos and ISRO for us at that point in time. So when we were spreading ourselves thin, of course, your high maintenance, the design center is a high maintenance, center. So we did have a lot of difficulties, in raising money or sustaining. Basically, you've got to be. Yeah, always. We've never really seen, a dip in that. Okay. Even if it is 10 rupees, we had shown.
You were above the ground.
Yes, above the ground. And all these things helped us because, some of it was like a production order. Most of it was design order. So this was feeding into this and things like that. So that helped in a lot of ways. And we started looking at various things, various laboratories. And life was not simple. Okay, when you spread yourself thin, your strength, you don't know where to put them, whether here, or here, so they're all working in everything. Okay, so we did suffer a bit in terms of, in terms of deliveries and things like that. And also, the kind of programs that were coming up, long gestation.
Any of the
some
defense,
of the products didn't even see the light of day, so it was really very bad, we would make a product with so much of passion and it wouldn't even come out, and then they would say, sorry, that program is quashed or cancelled or whatever it is. And like I said, we started with in the 90s. We were, into laboratory instrumentation, into automated test equipments, etc. That was from the year 85 to about 94. We were only doing laboratory instrumentation of larger systems and things like that, process automation and stuff like that. What happened is after that is when we got the ISRO, breakthrough, because one thought led to the next, business that we started looking at. So ISRO, what happened is we were doing laboratory instrumentation. We were into electronics anyway. So Rangarajan said, why not, when ISRO was opening out, they said, we are looking at people who are, indigenous, for products that are made in India. He said, there was a particular requirement that they had already floated. So they said, we had all the products ready with us. So he said, okay, you send it. You don't come. Just send your products. And that was free, huh? He said, send everything by truck. We will unload it. We will put it, we will test it for almost a month. They said, we will test all features, everything. And if it works without a glitch, then we will let you participate.
Wow.
So it all happened. It was again divine intervention. This was for, the ISRO's harness testing, all their automated test equipments.
Okay.
That's when we got our first break. And then after that, it was his, things were easier because they started looking at reliability, looking at, Indian products and things like that. So one led to the other. So we did all their test equipments. Okay. Come 99. I think, the then director of VSSC, Rangarajan went up to him and said, sir, this 1, 2, 3, 4 tenders coming up and all that. Why are we doing this? Why don't we have a rate contract? With data patterns, because that will help us, plan better and execute better too. And you'll also have, someone who's like a reliable partner who you can go to, and then instead of floating tenders for everything, you can then, our quality, etc. So he saw merit in that case, and then we signed a rate contract. So, from proving ourselves or, putting us through a litmus test to signing a rate contract, signing a rate contract was quite a shift in their attitude towards us.
Absolutely.
That is the line where we have our manual soldering. Okay.
This is the very lifeline of data patterns. Is it right to say that?
This is an important part of our, this drives the electronics. It's like your brain. It's like the brain. The boards actually drive the whole system. All right. So, of course, very, very important, right? Without the brain, I don't think, you even have your intelligence or existence, right? So, this is the brain of our electronics, okay? So, what really happens is, I told you about the commercially off-the-shelf boards. All the boards are designed, okay? There are several, we have quite a few, we have almost close to 20 or 25,000 boards, which are designed by us for different various, functionalities. So, what we do is, we build the boards and build our systems around the products that we already have, around the boards that we already have. So we design it in such a way that we use A, B, C, D in whatever combination that is required, and we make it into a product. We put it in our product. So what we really don't have is what is actually made for that. Okay, and that again becomes a product by itself.
A prototype on its own.
Yes.
Product on its
So
own.
on its own, where that is a different, it's a board which can be used anywhere else, right? So that is our IP action. So they're all commercially off the shelf, you know, they're different technologies. This thing, ISRO wanted VXI. Okay, so that was it was a common international bus. Okay, that is what they wanted. So we didn't have it at that point in time. So we said, okay, we will learn it, build it for you. So we built the VXI technology boards. So that's how it is. So the boards the design happens on the other side. Bare boards, that is the designed boards, actually go out. We don't have a facility to manufacture bare boards. We get them fabricated outside. We get them done outside. It comes here as bare boards, and they are electronically, soldered over here. All right. So, of course, the design is ours. They're only fabricators for us. Okay. So the bare board comes like this. Hey, show a bare board, no? Yeah. So the whole thing is happening here. Hey, show a bare board, no? So this is the bare board. Okay, I don't want to touch it. All right. So this is the bare board, which is fabricated outside, where, components are placed. They're supposed to be placed in a particular place and then soldered. Okay, but this is bare. This doesn't have any components or anything of that sort. But this goes into, a conveyor here. It goes into the screen printer.
I have one question here. But there is a design here, right?
Yeah. That is all ours. Yeah.
In a way, the design part is done.
Yes, design part is done. But now you have to place the components. See all the other things, understood. How it has to communicate, where it has to go, everything. There are tracks here, right? All of it is already designed and built here. All right. So this is then the components have to be placed, right? So what happens? How do you solder it? Through your solder paste, right? So this solder paste here is at a particular viscosity. We have a viscometer and there is a kneader, it's just like your atta kneader. Okay, so you knead it, get the viscosity that is required. We have a viscometer which checks the viscosity. Okay, then you feed it in here. This is a stencil. They come like this. The stencils are like this, okay? So when you print it, okay, it's like a screen printer, So you put the solder paste and it actually prints. Okay, so then the board goes here, the stencil is placed there, the solder paste, if you can see, the board is already there, so it is already soldered, okay? Not soldered, the paste is applied. To whichever place that is, it requires. So after this happens, it comes through the conveyor. You have one, physical or manual inspection. After which, if it's okay, then it goes into this. This is a pick and place machine where you feed your, these are all the components, the feeders here. So if you see, this is one of the resistors and, all those components. So what the machine does is all a very, very intelligent systems. So you have to feed everything in there and it will do according to whatever that you require them to do. So it goes there, the components are placed there. So this is a very versatile, pick and place machine. And that is even better. That's a newer one. This is an old one. This we installed in 2008. Yeah, so this is a Japanese machine. So, been our workhorse for a very, very, very long time now.
Almost 20 years.
Yeah, and without much of a break, So we have understood how to use this. So the components go this way. So it goes, studies the component. Okay, the board after printing it comes here. It is placed here. So the nozzle kind of reads the component and what is required. Goes, picks the right nodule. The nozzle comes, picks, places. Okay. So this is only placing. So you can see that the components are placed. If you can see the components are placed, can you make out?
Yes.
Can you see it?
Yes.
See here? Components are all placed on top, like little houses.
Yeah. Fascinating.
So then it comes here, goes into an optical inspection. This is a 2D optical inspection. Okay, so what it really does is, all these things are done also because we need traceability. Okay, so traceability is key in a mission critical application. Correct? You've got to know where it has failed, what has happened, how does a solder paste have an impact on the end product.
Correct.
You know, and things like that. So traceability has to be pakka. So every component, every board, everything has a trace. Everything. You know, it is like so many. Okay, so
And every board will have like a log.
Lots of them. It has a trace on the component, which batch of components it has come from, how it was soldered, to everything. So it has a you know, the root card is very clear. Everything comes through, and each board has a history card. You know, it's like your horoscope. Yeah. Okay. So it comes here. This is a optical inspection. So you feed a golden board. So when you feed the golden board, it studies the golden board, right? And then when the ones that are already, you know, placed come in here, it will compare. It will take images of the board, and then it will compare it with the golden board. And if there is something wrong, it will tell you, no, this is not okay. The one component has turned turtle, so you cannot have this, and things like that. So it comes out, then they place it correctly, and then it goes into, after which there is another physical, if they place it back into this, comes through, and this is the 8-stage soldering oven, okay, reflow oven, okay, 8-stage heating and 2 stages of cooling, okay. So this is where the actual soldering happens.
Understood.
Yeah. Okay. So we have these chambers over here. Okay. Point it, killer. No. So this is how the the ramp up of heat goes. Okay, and then it cools. See there. Okay. It's again, they study the components. What heat should it take? How should it go, etc. So that is what everything is again fed. All right. So it comes out after it is soldered. It comes out here through the conveyor. Comes here, placed here. You do one manual inspection of that. Goes to the 3D inspection. Okay, that is like you saw the optical imaging system over there. That was 2D. This is 3D. So once it gets soldered, it comes here, and they look at, again, it's the same process. They put the soldered, that is pre-soldered, this is post-solder.
Understood.
I've got it. Understood. Now their requirement is, is it soldered properly or not? That tells you whether the components are placed properly and things like that. This will tell you whether it is soldered properly or not. So this is how it will tell you. Okay, this is a go, no go. No, there is a problem. No, there is not a problem. Everything is fine and all that. So it will give you problems. If it is not okay, it will show how the solder paste or the soldering has not happened properly, etc. So that comes out, and then they correct it, and then it goes back. Okay, so everything is like a circle. It comes like this. So this is totally with no hands, no nothing. It's all automated. But we also have a process which is manual soldering. Some of the things cannot be soldered by these machines, like your connectors and things like that. The edges and the connectors and all that. That happens in this place. Yeah. Okay. That's my manual soldering area. So there, we have all ITI qualified or diplomates in electronics who are doing the soldering. And again, they go through, I told you, right, that IPC standard that we have. So we follow a certain standard. Okay. And that standard, they're all trained. They all are certified, actually. Even in ISRO school.
ISRO students also, right? You were mentioning.
From ISRO school.
From ISRO school.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rekha. Thank you so much. This is very, very informative.
So once the board comes here, there is a cleaning process that has to, it has to go through. So they go out and they're cleaned and then only given for testing. And all the boards are tested 100% for functionality. All functions are tested. So there is not one function which is okay. It's not like a random test. 100%.
Yeah, because of the level of accuracy it needs to drive.
That's right. You know, the URSC, that is the VSSC, I think the program now is Gaganyaan, yeah? You can take this perhaps. Yeah.
This is the VSC, ISAC and BTP board models we are doing over here. Since now we have started for Rangarajan mission, we have started all the models we are doing.
Sorry, BTP is built to print. Okay. We also do a lot of work for build to spec. There are two different things. Okay. Build to spec and build to print. Now, this is a build to print, you know, kind of a program where they give us the design. Okay, but we build it to their design. But some of it is also built to spec. Like we have our own, you know, design that is given, and we also build. Correct?
Now we are doing the models for
is this for the ATs?
No. This is for the
pure
satellite
model.
For the satellite.
Which goes into the satellite.
Okay.
Yeah, it is not into any ATE. Goes into the Gaganyaan satellite. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. And you were also in Chandrayaan.
Yes.
Yeah, Chandrayaan we have completed. Now we have next mission is Rangarajan. All the models we have done for
you make us all very proud. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we, you know, we also had given the test equipment for the Gaganyaan.
Understood.
Okay, that was handed over quite some time ago, no? Yeah, they've been testing it for quite some time.
Last year we have completed.
Yeah, we completed the whole thing.
So, ATs apart, you also do for the satellite.
Yes, for the satellite. We also build satellites. Okay. So, this is one section that is, you know, it's called the spacecraft assembly, integration and testing. So, this is dedicated to ISRO. Whereas we, you know, that is for generic. More generic for all projects. But this is specifically meant only for ISRO. And all of them are again trained there, and they come and certify. They come, they check, they inspect, and then only they, you know, they kind of give a certification. And whatever happens here, we follow their process. Okay, it's not our process, but we have learned.
This is like almost like an outsourced entity.
Correct.
ISRO's activity happening here.
Yes.
ISRO people, they
ISRO
will be all
people?
trained. We will be doing as per
What they require. Okay, so this facility is dedicated to ISRO. Okay. Yeah.
So you're actually bringing the boat to life. And
absolutely.
Then, Rekha, thanks for showing us around in the product section. I think phenomenal. I couldn't have even imagined seeing all of this in my lifetime. So you were actually showing us the fire control system and you know, your association with the BrahMos project.
Yes.
Can you just take us through that?
With BrahMos again, you know, BrahMos was a new program, right? In the 20s, it was just a fantastic, you know, what should I say, a thought process where it was, you don't know the history of BrahMos.
No, I don't know.
Okay. See, hitherto, missiles have been built in India. It's not that we were not building missiles, but this was a brainchild of the, you know, the government's initiative of doing a joint venture with the Russian government. Okay. So the BrahMos missile is a joint venture between Moscow, that is the Indian government, and the Russian government. So BrahMos is the Brahmaputra and the Moscow river. You know, so it's a culmination of the Brahmaputra river and Moscow, river Moscow. So that's why they called it the BrahMos. Okay. Now, that time, at that point in time, missiles, the supersonic missiles were not built in India.
Okay.
So that is what we, you know, Dr. Shivadanu Pillai was put in charge of, you know, building supersonic missiles in India. So that was the BrahMos missile that, you know, that the brainchild of the government initiative, but it was taken over, I mean, it was given in the hands of Dr. Shivadanu Pillai, who was a dynamic leader, you know, during his time. okay, which was given this responsibility of building this. So we also said, okay, we will participate, because we looked at the tender and we said, okay, we have most of these things, okay, in our kitty. Why don't we configure it to, kind of participate in this program? But like I said, it's always been quite a saga or a struggle for us. First, they said, they called us and they said, oh, you're a small company. You can't, how can we, allow a small company to come in? Because this is not a joke. We want to do it on, you have to do everything on the double. So we said, no, we have everything here. We will do it for you. But again, we had to prove ourselves, to actually participate. So we went there and we said, okay, we have this, and we have this, and we have this, which will make it into a product. So the scientists or people in DRDO knew us. So they all knew that we were capable enough, but the BrahMos team also had to be satisfied, right? So they all said, okay, let us do it. And then suddenly we were qualified to quote. Then suddenly one day we were all sitting in the office and, we got a call saying that Dr. Shivadhanu Pillai saying, who is this company in Chennai? In Madras at that point in time, having everything you say and a very capable company. How is it that, I haven't seen it, because he was in ISRO before. Okay, so he said, then he's made some inquiries in ISRO and all that, got our credentials from ISRO, and finally he said, okay, let me go and see who they are, what they are, and things like that. When he came, he was very happy to, see all of us. Though the place where we were was not so impressive, but when he came in, he saw capability.
Understood.
He said he saw passionate people, he saw capability, he said there's a hunger, in people. So that really impressed him, and Rangarajan's earnestness, in telling him that, look, give me an opportunity, I will build it for you, and things like that. That really, kind of impressed him the most. Then he came and he said, okay, where is your QA person? We didn't have a QA person at that point in time. So we were scrambling to actually, get a QA person. Then he said, look, if I give you, these BrahMos missiles to, the trucks to be outfitted with, this product, where will you outfit it? You don't even have a facility to do it. So at that point in time is when Rangarajan said, see, we were in a rented place. Everything was rented. The philosophy of Rangarajan was that, if tomorrow I have to shut shop, okay, I shouldn't owe anything to anyone. Everything is rented. I've already paid for it. Okay, only that month's rent is all I would have to pay, or whatever it is. So including computers, your air conditioner, everything was rented. Okay, everything was hired. So then when Dr. Shivadhanu Pillai said that, he started thinking and he said, no, now we have to, now if we are given this opportunity, we have to grow big. Okay. So sure enough, what happened when the tender opened, they were all, of course, we were all very nervous. The team led by Rangarajan went to Hyderabad. That's where, the lab was. And they came, they sat there with all the big wigs, L&T, Tata, BEL, BHEL, I think these are the four companies, and Data Patterns. Okay. So they were all, they all knew each other, and they were, backslapping and saying hello and whatever, being very familiar and all that. The boys from here were very nervous, saying, what is happening? Will we get this opportunity and all that? So then it seems some of them were eliminated. Data Patterns was asked to wait. Okay. And then finally they said, look, you have emerged L1, but we still are very skeptical. Okay. We will give L&T the ship version. We will give Data Patterns the land version. Okay. So you prove yourselves. Then we will see what next we can do. So he said, time is the key here. You've got to prove that, you can maintain timelines. Okay. The beauty is we delivered ahead of time.
Wow.
And that's when Dr. Shivadanu Pillai was so impressed, so happy, because he said that gave the energy or the necessary push to that program, even L&T had not delivered by then. So we delivered ahead of time. So we were considered, so we slowly started mining the customer because we had already proved ourselves there, right? So then there was a checkout system that came up, which is to check the health of the missile. So we got into that program also because Dr. Pillai thought that, if at all, if you need anything to be re-engineered and to understand the whole thing, it has to be either an L&T or a data patterns, because they've understood the requirement. So they gave us an opportunity, they gave data patterns and L&T the opportunity, but we emerged L1 again, so we had understood how to code, what to do and all that. So we emerged L1 and we got that contract also, which was the checkout system. One led to the other, so all their requirements, slowly they were coming to us only because we were delivering. Time and time again. And then, we were looked at as good partners because we delivered not only quality, but also consistently. So that is why and they chose us. And
also a word of praise for these visionaries, no?
Absolutely. Dr. Pillai, my God.
Identified honesty, you said. Yes. You used that word, earnestness and passion.
So he's our mentor, He comes here even now. He's very happy with the growth of data patterns. And he is so happy to see us, transform. He says, today when I see data patterns, it is so different and it is so nice to see all the youngsters and everyone here. So he's seen us, from where we were to where we are today, and the public image that we have today. It's like a father saying, okay, so my son is doing well. So that's how, that's the story of BrahMos. Beautiful. So another interesting story about BrahMos is the fire control system for the air version. Okay, so the air version was also very important because at that point in time, BrahMos was inducting their missiles into the, onto the Sukhoi, underbelly of Sukhoi. So that was one program which was again very prestigious. Okay, so we built it in record time again, though testing took a long time because they had to actually, put the missile under the belly of Sukhoi 30, and it's not easy, you've got to look at the frame and how to fit it and what to do and things like that. So that took a long time. And we had already delivered by then, and when the trials were on, it hit bullseye. Our fire control systems, they kept testing. Even the first launcher that I talked to you about, it was a very emotional, time when the first launch of the BrahMos missile, we were all called. So Rangarajan and his team went of engineers who had built that. They actually saw the missile launch. Wow. So that was our BrahMos story. But I was telling you about the second launch pad, right? Where we participated again, when once we had already delivered quite a few systems there, they didn't allow us to participate in the first launch pad upgradation. Then the second launch pad came in and they gave us an opportunity there. And after that, it was history, we upgraded most of their, equipments in the second launch. Yeah, that is right. We did, some of them were new and some of them were upgradations. And that was one big high for us because, any launch and we are a part of it.
Every rocket, every satellite that goes up.
Everything that goes up, we are a part of it because it is the launcher. Yeah,
you did the launcher.
We did the, the second launch pad. It is that launch pad that we did. Okay. So actually what we gave was a countdown checkout system, which is actually checking the health of the satellite, the vehicle. Okay, is everything okay? Are all the systems fine? Are all the cables, everything. It tests, you only hear the last 10 seconds, but it is checking 48 hours, for everything. And it is doing it for 48 days before the actual launch.
48 days, 48 hours, and then the last
10 seconds.
10 seconds. Yeah. Thank you so much. Such an enriching experience being in your manufacturing.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rekha. Thank you for taking us through the manufacturing entity in total. I think what stands out for me is how you've embraced your husband's vision, dream, life, everything, and become a part of it and contributed so significantly. So from all the decade rewind, now I want to go back to your marriage story.
Oh my God, that's a total rewind.
Total rewind. So tell me about, how you met Ms. Rangarajan sir. How did it all come
I mean,
about?
that's a 42-year-old history. Okay, so some of it I may have, though some of it is etched in my memory. Some things are, best forgotten, they say, right? So this happened year 1983. I think that's when we met each other, 82, 83. And he was my cousin's husband's friend. And we kept meeting each other, whether it was by, by choice or otherwise, I really don't know. But we met and we liked each other, and the families were, my family was open, but his family was a little more orthodox, and I didn't belong to a Tamil Brahmin community. I was from a Kannada Brahmin community. So at that point in time, I'm talking about the early 80s. It was not, it was not at all acceptable. I wouldn't call it, conservative or anything of that sort. Some things were not accepted, right?
Yeah.
And that too, I came from not even from Tamil Nadu, but I came from Karnataka. So they were a little wary about, about my culture, my tradition, or whatever it is. So initially they said no, but finally I think they prevailed. I mean, they were convinced that, we should get married. But at that point in time, they really never thought that, the one thing that I was very particular about was I should at least be a graduate before I get married. But that was not, so in the minds of the parents, because you find a good match and that's it. The next day you have to get married was what was on their minds. But again, it was. It was a good thing at that point in time, because you come of marriageable age, you find a good match, and that's it. Life is made after that. And even for the parents, it's like a responsibility. They've discharged their responsibilities, what they feel. So my husband, that is Rangarajan, he said, "Look, I'll be your pillar of support. Okay, so you do whatever that you want." So I said, "Look, I want to study." He said, "You please." And he would sit with me, interestingly, very funny. Just after we got married, he would pour over my books. And, he would also take some of the chapters and, he would explain it and all that. He's a wonderful teacher.
Oh.
Okay, so he would sit and explain to me and all that, So it was really nice. You may call it romantic, but yes.
I do find it very romantic. But
there was a little romance in whatever that, that time. And he was working for a company called IDM. At that point in time, he was a marketing executive, doing very well. And, at that point in time, a great salary. We had, everything, a nice car, a good life, and expense account, etc., etc. So life was made, life was cushy. But soon enough, the entrepreneurial bug in him kept coming back and, biting him. So he said, I think enough of working. I want to now become an entrepreneur. But I didn't really understand all of this, because I was focused on my, studies, setting up home, maintaining home, studying, and keeping a relationship. Those things were in focus for me, rather than, his dream to become an entrepreneur, or what entailed, or what life would bring, to us as if we get onto that journey or that bus. So little did I realize, that it would be totally different, because I was used to, some money coming, spending and all that. So he said, "Look, life will not change. I promise that we will be in Bangalore, and when I start this venture." So he, along with a colleague of his who was in the technology side, technical line, he was the marketing man. So they decided to build products. So he was with IDM, which was into supercomputing and then computers, those kind of electronics, basically. So he was marketing for all the to all the big companies and things like that. So then he decided that and they were also into instrumentation and all that. They were selling, they were selling, making everything. So then he said, okay, let's also build products. So the bug in him came back and said, okay, here's an opportunity. So they decided, his colleague and he decided to build products which were at that point in time, called laboratory instrumentation. Okay. And all instrumentation basically. So he said, okay, let's build products for looking at the laboratories and whatever that they were selling, okay, the Perkin-Elmer one or the HP ones and, the NI ones and things like that. So they said, let's build it. So they came out, okay, he came out from the organization and, he was very thrilled that he got about 11,000 rupees of his PF money. That was his seed money.
Oh my God.
Okay, he said, look, I have money now, so I might as well put it into my business. So he, put that 11,000 rupees and then, things look very rosy, when you are starting up something and you feel, okay, now that I'm empowered to do whatever that I want, now next, I'll go step by step and that's it, I'll be successful. But little did we all realize that it was not such a simple thing at all. He had to struggle. The product itself did not come up the way that, it was meant to be. And he had quite a few challenges as far as the electronics was concerned, or even the product architecture was concerned, etc. So they faced a huge, a number of challenges. So one challenge after the other kind of was, draining their spirit because, they were not getting the kind of response, or even, the product that they were to field, it was not even ready to be fielded. So that was quite a disillusionment, in both of them. But Ranga went on. He said, look, let's not give up. His one principle that he has is never give up. Persevere. And I think success will not, not dodge you. That was his philosophy. So he never gave up. He said, let's continue. Let's look at it. Let's, go from one problem to the other. But I think somewhere down the line, the partner, who was the electronics man, he kind of said, okay, enough is enough. I don't think I should,
be part of this project.
Be a part of this journey because, he was also going to get married and he had so many other responsibilities. So he said, look, and there was a bit of an ego clash also, where being the marketing man, he was the face of the organization, right? So he would go out in the market. So it was known as Rangarajan and Data Patterns. Whereas the other partner was not known at all because he was the backroom boy. He was a technical backroom boy. So that was, that I think affected him a bit. So he said, either you run the company and I'm out, or you make me the MD and I own the whole company. So Ranga said, neither. I will not allow, it's just our venture together. Either we are in it together or we are out. Okay. So Ranga said, I'm not going to give up. I'm not going to give this baby up. I'm going to continue with this. So his partner said, then let me off. I think I will get out. So you continue with this. So they parted. But that was quite a blow to Rangarajan because, he was not the techie.
You come with a plan and this person will do this, that person.
Absolutely. And it's not just, in terms of strategy, but it's emotionally very draining, when you think that you have a partner and the partner says, I'm no longer your partner, that in itself was a huge emotional drain on him. And then after that, holding the baby, which is something that you've got to nurture and grow, the anxiety around that itself was really too much for him to handle. And he was all of 30. Okay, when that happened. And for a 30-year-old to be mature enough to say that, I will not give up, was one quality which I can never ever, I've never seen many people do that. Okay, so he said, no, I'm not giving it up. Then one challenge after the other, he took on consultants, he took on, he recruited engineers, they overcame one technical challenge after the other, and they made a successful product, which they sold, okay, to, and they became OEs, okay, OEMs for big companies like Blue Star and, all that. So that journey kind of slowly moved, but it was slow. It was not at the pace that you would like it.
India was also in that period when I think all of it was just, at least in the manufacturing, very slow.
Very, very slow. Not just slow. It was not even sluggish. I would say that, we were still learning. Right? So when you're learning, there are a lot of challenges that you come by. Correct? If you're reinventing something or if you're re-engineering, it's a different matter altogether.
Absolutely.
When you're really building or when you're really looking at what kind of products that we build and how to do it, that's quite challenging, right? I mean, you've got to look at so many different things. So then what happened? After he started building these products, life went on. I mean, I finished in the background. Yes, I was studying.
We have to come back to you.
So what happened? The business was in Bangalore. And suddenly one day I get a call from Ranga saying he had come down to Chennai, Madras at that point in time. And then I get a call saying, Rekha, I think we are shifting to Madras. Pack up, give up the house, and we are here in Chennai. I said, look, Ranga, what is this? I mean, the decision that you have taken, you should have at least consulted me. I said, okay, now what are the next steps? Okay, I have to give up the house, I've got to wind up, I've got to go there. But my dream of doing my master's, okay, I did a triple major in my degree. Okay, it was English, psychology honors and economics. So English, of course, I did because I was very passionate about the language, about English. So then when we shifted to Madras, I said, look, I can't give up on my studies. I have to do my master's. So my father-in-law was so helpful. He came with me from college to college, used some influence and got me into SIET here, So because Madras University was not taking direct students. So I went to SIET along with him. He knew the principal and he knew the founder. So he came along, got me a seat in MA Psychology, Advanced Applied Psychology it was called. First month after we started itself, we started having
financial issues.
Financial stress. There was no liquidity, was almost zero. No money even for sustenance. So then when we shifted to Madras, we came by, he said, I don't want to, be a burden on my father-in-law. So I'd rather be a burden on, not burden. He said, I'm more comfortable, being with my parents. So my father-in-law.
So it was like a cost-cutting exercise.
Absolutely. So we came here. Of course, we were contributing to the house. It was not that we were not, but very little,
There is a difference between you running your own establishment.
Versus vis-a-vis a big joint family and things like that. So we thought it would be better for us to come to Madras. And, when we came here, it's like a culture shock for me. Absolutely. Because I come from a very, we were in North India, so we've traveled, around. But I came into a very traditional Tamil Brahmin, family. Very, I would call them very liberal, in terms of thought. Okay, but the practices at that point in time were quite binding, So some of the practices were totally alien to me. So slowly, one after the other, it was like a breaking of the barrier. I said, look, we have shifted here and we do not want to look like a burden on them, And we definitely didn't want to be freeloaders. So I said, look, I am going to work my way up. Okay, so I have to be helpful in the house. So kitchen was the best option, right? Because I saw my mother-in-law never complaining, never ever. She had, there were about 14, 15 people every day having breakfast, having brunch, tea time, snacks and dinner, So there was no respite for her. So she was relentless, never complained about anything, always had a smile on her face and, so I would sit with her, learn, cook, clean and then run to college.
Wow.
And it was very nice. I had a wonderful set of classmates. Okay. And throughout my college and everything, he was extremely supportive. Not for one day did he demand anything, or say, whatever that you're doing is not so relevant or useless or whatever. He kept saying, no, these are your dreams. There's one lesson that he, gave me very early in life. He said, he sat me down, he said, look, he was all of 27 when I got married at age 19. And you're like a sponge, right? And I said, okay. He said, sat me down, and he said, there are some things that we should understand. Okay, what to do and how to do. So he said, look, first thing, you must understand that I'm not your world. Okay, so you have got to build a world for yourself. So if you're going to be looking at me as your world, you will stifle not just me, but you will have too many disappointments. So that was one life lesson that I really carried with me. So he said, you've got to build your own life, Rekha. You've got to make a mark for yourself. You're not just Mrs. Rekha, Mrs. Rangarajan. You've got to be Rekha Murthy. That during my MA, Madras University had this program of, like your not your internship, what are they called in medical? They say house surgency, right? House surgency. So something like that. So we were put in, in the general hospital to do counseling. Okay, so we were all not counseling. We were asked to take history and come up to the level of diagnosis and do a little bit of counseling. Okay, after about 3-4 months, you were allowed to do counseling and all that. That was like a practical session. Okay, so being married, I was getting all problems of relationship and things like that. They pushed those kind of cases to me. They would direct those things to me. So I started really enjoying it, and I liked it, because I felt what I wanted to be, and with my ability to, interact with people, this was the right, kind of
forum or right kind of a career
for me. A choice of career I felt was very good, and but there were too many disappointments. So mental science at that point in time had really not grown. Acceptance was zero. Okay, if I told somebody you have a problem with, with the way you think or with your mind, they would say, of course not. I mean, I'm totally in control. There's nothing wrong with me. Or vis-a-vis, I would tell them, okay, you have a problem with your heart. Okay, you're skipping a beat and all that. They would accept it, very naturally. Yeah, okay, that's my heart. Okay, whatever. But my mind, my brain,
no issues.
Because I own it. I direct it. So people would come and say, "Neenga ella solradella waste. Give me medicine. Give me one tablet. That's good enough for me. Give me an injection. I don't think I have a mental problem. You calling me a mental problem? You calling me a mental and all that. So they would never come back for a counseling session or for a session as a what should I say, as a follow up. Okay, so it was very frustrating. Whatever that you would want to do, whatever you say, whatever you do, it was never. You could never see the life cycle of that's end. Right. So they would either give up right in the beginning, or they would give up midway.
Yeah, that's even
okay. So I never saw the whole recovery cycle, or even some semblance of acceptance or recovery. So I would come back home, and I was always very frustrated with all this. And that was when his company was also not doing so great. Then he said, Rekha, do one thing. Why don't you just jump the fence? Go into the corporate world. At least there you have sane people, you have normal people. Maybe you can, since you have a background in English literature and, an MA in psychology, you will be good with, interpersonal skills, or, probably you can try PR. Okay. So I said, okay, armed with all this, I went and joined this company, which was, again, through friends, acquaintances, joined this magazine called Aside. Okay. Aside was a fortnightly, which is very interesting fortnightly in, about Madras. It was a very local English fortnightly. Okay. And everybody used to enjoy reading Aside. Okay. So I joined Aside, and I said, I'll write your business page, because I could write well. So I said, I'll do the business page, and I'll also sell space. Okay, that was the need of the hour, because it was started by a gentleman called Abraham Irali. And he was the editor. So his business sense was quite basic, He was that typical, dreamer and, editor and writer and all that. So we wanted to make it commercially viable and successful. So we all sat together and we said, okay, we will sell the space and, do all that. So that was really a very wonderful time that I had. So my first foray into, the corporate, not the corporate world, so to say,
it
but
was
into
a
smaller,
landing,
it was a soft
actually.
landing.
Soft landing for your corporate
That's right.
career.
So it was such a beautiful launch, if you ask me, that I enjoyed it, for about 2 years and all that. Then the magazine itself went through some changes and all that. So the importance of, whatever that we were doing really,
faded away.
It faded. I mean, even the popularity faded because lots of people were leaving, and then it got acquired. And when there is an acquisition, there's always a problem for the oldies, right? So all those things really happened. So we all left. And at that point in time, I got into Sterling Computers. They were looking for a PR. Okay. And PR, not really HR, they used to call them personnel managers. Okay. So I gotten into that role, and Sterling Computers was a good ride because they were just going public. So they were looking for a PRO to do their, those broker conferences, the press conferences, and manage the whole, the PR side. So I was in charge of the advertising agency, bringing in an advertising agency. Also following up. There was no social media, there was no television, there was nothing of that sort. Only print was,
and hoardings and all that.
That's right. And conferences, the big, what should I say, events and things like that. So I came went into Sterling Computers to manage that. Okay. So it was such a fantastic opportunity, So I think I was lucky that I got that break, so I went into that, and after which, the IPO was successful. It was oversubscribed and all that. But I think they also went through so many changes, Sterling Computers also was, there was a high and then there was a low. So we were all riding the high, and of course, when the low happened, the things changed, It was not like retrenchment or anything of that sort, but it was, they were cutting down on budgets and all that. And my division was not touched. But I felt, I should come out and not really burden the organization. And instead of them coming to me, I think I should look at, I should look at a career ahead of me. At that point in time, what happened? I got into Arthur Andersen because of my experience in handling people in HR and admin. Because I had set up the whole place, right? So in admin and all that, I got into HR. It was like a fused role of HR cum admin.
Nice.
Okay. So joined Arthur Andersen. They were all like, wow, you're joining Arthur Andersen.
Yeah, I feel a little, wow, you joined Andersen.
For me, it was like, okay, I've got an opportunity. Now I think I should, do well. I mean, to contribute and learn from whatever that is. So Arthur Andersen was a wonderful place, and each part of my journey has taught me something new, So when I joined Andersen, it taught me the American way of working, So everything was process driven. Everything was, it was standardized. Okay, even the chair that we would order, even the carpet that we would order, or even the size of the cabin, even the table, the color of the table, everything was standardized, So one Andersen office had to look identical to the other. So they were just setting up offices, So when why I'm saying all this is because there's a connect to why I handle facilities over here to whatever
even
it is.
Without you saying it, I just feel that was all a pre-preparation for you to come and
absolutely, more or less. Okay, so I came into the Madras office of Arthur Andersen, and I was their HR and I was their admin. Okay, so the admin was in charge of facilities. All right, so that's how I got into this line of, okay, I can manage interiors and, get work done. And, it was a marvel for me, at that point in time, because I came from a sector which was like, okay, hey, come on, do this. Okay, what have you done today? Okay, document what you have done today and things like that. There was no process or a workflow or anything of that sort, It was an unorganized, way of working. So, unorganized, I won't call it disorganized. I would say unorganized.
Unorganized, yeah.
So,
nice you make that distinction. Yeah.
Yeah, because, it is not disorganized way of working. It's just, you're not organized it in a way that you have to. But again, I found the attitude there. You come from a very humble, I wouldn't call it a humble background. I would say with some ideals, right? And you're given, you're taught a lot of these, values in life, where you say, okay, you can never be arrogant. You can, you've got to understand what you're doing, and, you've got to be a true karma yogi, as he keeps saying, and all that. So for me, when I came into Anderson, each one was, I thought they were breeding, arrogance into the system itself, that you're great. We are a great organization. We are the best.
Anderson, you've arrived in life.
Absolutely. You're the best. Yeah. So as soon as they walk into the office itself, they had that, they had
chip on the shoulder.
The chip on the shoulder. And it was really very, very miserable at that point in time. Because I said, look, as a HR person, I think I should tell them that the work is important. You're not important. It's the work that is more important than you. Right? But that message never really went to any of them, because they were all very young. I mean, we were, recruiting college graduates, who were article clerks and things like that. And of course, the partners were all as arrogant as ever, because, they were all, from big companies, or they had come from big companies and things like that. So then these kids, how they are, right? You just tell them, give them a little, room, and that's it. They own the room. So they all started. I didn't like it. I didn't like the culture. It was like a big pressure cooker culture. You build that pressure and then put them into the pressure, and then take them out and say, okay, now is the lesson that you have learned. What did you learn from all the pressure and things like that? I felt it was not my way of working. Probably it's good in a way for, at that point in time. But
it's so beautiful for me to hear this, Rekha, because I think then the world needs more of thinkers like this to actually build companies that are worthwhile. I think for me, the dots are just connecting, but thank you for sharing this.
So it's this Anderson journey, though I learnt a lot.
No, I understand. I absolutely get it, because their process controls, what you do,
their workflow, automation, and even their mailing system was spot on. We used to use something called the Lotus Notes.
I know Lotus Notes.
Yeah, you know
I'm
Lotus
as
antique. Okay. I don't know. I thought you were much after that. So Lotus Notes and everything was new to me, including how to present and looking at Excel sheets and how to format. That was also standardized, how to look at what kind of font and all that. So that was a big, big learning for me. I really felt that, that was my true training. Into the corporate world. So, but didn't like the culture. So, at that point in time, we decided that, I will not quit because, or I'll not join the business or whatever, because you had to put the food on the table, right? The kitchen fires had to burn, and something had to happen, because one steady income had to come into the house.
Absolutely.
So I really thought that was a great responsibility that was given to me. At that point in time, we were fighting for relevance, right? I was the crossover generation, where I said, okay, I have to be a good wife, a good daughter-in-law, and also be a professional, step out of home, be an equally good worker and things like that, so that the thing of
it's thanks to the blocks that you people put, that I think it slowly paved the way for all of us.
Okay, I hope so. So then
it was not mandatory, in your time for you to work.
Yes.
It was not at all mandatory. So
Correct.
the effort that you put in is enormous.
So for me, it was like life was simple. I said, okay, I've got to keep home. I have got to discharge my responsibility with equal aplomb in both areas. Because I do not want anybody to say, look, you're neglecting home, hence you can do work here. Or you're neglecting work and you're keeping a good home, or whatever it is. So I said, no, I've got to do this perfectly. But in all this, I had put a hold on having a child, and I said, let's do something in life, and then we can have the children.
That was one of my questions.
I'm not at all bitter. After a point in time, though the society kind of doesn't ostracize you, but then kind of brands you.
They put a certain level of pressure on you, for sure.
Absolutely, So, but I overcame all that because at home, there was no one who was putting pressure on me. Okay,
nice.
It was neither Ranga nor my parents nor his parents, who were so nice. They said, okay, I mean, we'll accept you as you are. I don't think you need to be, afraid of being branded or being whatever it is, So that it was like a never give up attitude in him that also gave me, that edge that I was, I wanted to emulate. And that's what I got. I never gave up on any of those things. Then when I after Anderson, I was just okay. I said, okay, let me relax for at least a month because I'd never taken a break. So that's when Polaris happened, Polaris Software. We were looking for a HR person for their new strategic business unit. So I interviewed and I immediately got a job because they were not just interested in what I brought to the table, but also the fact that I had trained at Anderson. Okay,
Understood.
So when I went with that kind of an experience, I became a culture, a change agent, culturally, they were again, the unorganized or whatever, they were again very, very native in their thoughts and all that. So I became a culture change agent. Okay. And our SBU became one of the best SBUs in Polaris. And they were all very happy, brought in so many different things into the company, the kind of fun activities that we would do. But also doing serious business.
Understood.
Okay, and at that point in time, you must understand that it was the boom, the software boom, and they were given all kinds of things, a dating allowance to whatnot. I was so against all that. When I joined them, there were just about 100 people. And, they had come from different SPUs and then they were there. And then after I joined, we became almost 1,300 people there, and I was involved in recruitment. But we had a recruitment team, but I was involved in all the, in completely building it into a bigger SBU, and we became one of the strongest and the biggest SBUs in Polaris. So we were well liked. And people wanted to join us because we were, we were the fun, SBU while delivering whatever that we had to and things like that. So Polaris gave me wings, while Anderson taught me a lot, but bound me, Polaris, I felt so liberated, that I could really make a change. And I felt that, whatever I had learned in Anderson, whatever I learned in my previous companies, I could actually implement some of them in Polaris. Okay, and how to implement, what to do came to me only when, they did not restrict me. Okay, so I had wonderful bosses. Okay, right from, my boss, his name is Mahadevan. Right from him to my colleagues. Even today, they are very good friends, very, very good friends. And, we go a long way. And if you ask me, those are my best days, my professional best days. Okay. Then from there, I never wanted to leave Polaris. It was never in my mind to leave Polaris. But what happened at that point in time is Rangarajan decided to, like he was telling you, I think we wanted to expand. Okay, we saw more potential in the year 2000, come 2000, and we had some big successes in ISRO, in the defense. Electronics design, and even DRDOs. Then he said, look, and the BrahMos, of course, I was a part of the BrahMos team anyway. So he said, look, we are quoting for big things and we have to build an organization. So today I have a relevant role or a significant role for you. Because I said, otherwise there is no point in just coming and just being there and things like that. So he said, look, I can pay you your salary and there is a significant role for you. So that's when I came into the organization. I said, okay, I will quit my cushy job at Polaris. And he said, you've got to come and build the organization. So it is ours.
So the 19-year-old wife becomes the professional partner after all the industry training.
Yes.
Wow,
so he felt I was worthy of being a partner only at that point.
I don't think he would have brought you in if that hadn't happened.
True. But then what really happened at that time is, though he asked me to join and do whatever was required, he never really introduced me as wife, but he introduced me as the professional who will bring in the change. Okay, so I had to make I had to kind of create my own path here, and also make myself more relevant in terms of having to build my own relationships, etc. That is where they've all been there. They were all there for quite some time, and they were used to some old ways of working and all that. But I came from a background which had taught me a lot of things, right? So I was raring to go. I was raring to implement a lot of things. So one led to the other.
What were the changes that you brought into the system?
Yeah, a lot of encouragement came from Vijay, our COO. He was also not really a newbie at that time, but he had already made a mark for himself as a software go-to software person in data patterns. But he encouraged me a lot. He wanted that change. He was being young. We kind of related, and he said, let's change the way we think in data patterns. So one thing led to the other. We wanted to recruit more people. So all the experience of recruiting people, of having a walk-in, to doing interviews, to everything came of help. And we implemented one after the other. And the one main thing that really happened was, we started recruiting in bulk. We started recruiting in hordes, and then doing the training and, making them de-learn, relearn, and then, put them into the system. All that was very exciting. And while we were doing that, actually, Rangarajan and all of us decided that we have to become people, it should
process focus.
We should bring in a process focus, because we can't be dependent on only people. Like he said, you stop contributing if you want to keep it to yourself, kind of a thing. So we said, the people are coming and going. We're losing lots of people, because by then we were training and we were losing people. Okay, so we said we have to put in a process. So we all decided that we have to put the process. And by then we had to also have some certifications, like the ISO and the AS9100s and all that for the aerospace industry. So we said, we'll not do it for the sake of, being certified. So Rangarajan said, there's a felt need to make it more process oriented. So we all got into a war room kind of a thing and said, okay, each one took a process. Like I took the process of HR and admin and, the rest of it. Likewise, marketing, finance, the hardware, the software, the system design. All of it, kind of were written down. Okay, we said, okay, one after the other, the process flow, everything we wrote down. And we said, okay, we will now see how to match it with whatever is required by the, the standard. So we did a gap analysis. We said, we will follow this for 2 years. With nobody coming and doing any audit on us or anything. It is a self-discipline that we will follow. So we followed that process, did a gap analysis, then only went in for a certification. So we passed the audit or certification with flying colors.
It is like what you do when no one's watching.
Correct.
That's what's going to define who you are or what you are.
Yes.
Phenomenal.
So that's what we decided to do, and we implemented. We were quite successful in getting all that. And today that is our IP, whatever that we have documented and whatever that has come through all these years in our process is our IP. We can't really, anybody can steal it. But, it is it's very passionate. We are very passionate about it. It's very dear to us.
Yeah.
We call that our true IP. Okay. So today, we are very process focused, and everything is defined. Every role is defined. Every person, whatever he's doing or she's doing, everything is defined. So it's a good, what should I say? Today, even the children want something very defined, right?
Yeah.
Today's generation, at least we came from where, you could imagine and you could, say, okay, something manage the hazy, the ambiguous and all that part. But here today, they all want everything defined.
Absolutely.
So this is working with this generation as well.
Absolutely. So you've actually, what I see in data patterns is that at one end, you have people working for 19, 20 years. And at the other end, you have the Gen Z, Gen Alpha coming in, getting trained, getting ISRO trained and getting that value. So you very beautifully blended both these worlds to coexist. Do you have any pointers there?
No, see, it was not by by design.
Do you want some water, Rekha?
Yeah. Can I have some water? It was not by design, So we've had the seniors guiding and the juniors coming up, So once they cross the 3-year-old threshold, generally they tend to stay. Okay, it's the attrition or the turmoil in them is, in the first 3 years. And after that, they either want to study more or they want to get into, something else or earn more. Their objectives change. Right? But once they decide that this is the place that I want to work, or this is the kind of work that I want to do, because the content, they're doing true blue engineering here.
And they can see it getting implemented. It's core technology.
Right. So hitherto you used to writing code or you're doing some little part of the design and all that. Here you can actually see the product coming up.
Build it in front of your eyes.
Yeah, I think that is a big high for all of them. You know? And whatever they learn, their counterparts outside are not even 1/10.
Yeah.
And
that also lends itself to attrition, actually. That's also poaching and all of that.
So that really helped in a lot of ways that, people were passionate about whatever that they were doing. And this kind of work was not available outside.
Not available. Yeah.
So whenever they would go out, even though, sometimes we even struggle to pay salaries and all that, they've stayed with us through thick and thin, and they're like family to me. Today, I know the names of all the guys here, my seniors, my sub-seniors, my, people who are coming up and all that. So I had interviewed them. I had, it's like, I feel very maternal or very, motherly towards.
For it to come, I mean, it's not, there are those little things that I think will be making the difference.
Yeah. So when they come back and tell me, the questions that you asked me during my interview, I can never forget and all that, So that's when I feel, probably my style of interviewing was so different. But today I don't get into interviews and all that, other than, very senior positions and all that. But we have documented a lot of those things, even the questions that need to be asked in some way or the other, and in your own personal ways and things like that. So we look at attitude more than aptitude. So it is.
You can teach this. You can't teach that.
Yes, that's right.
That's very important.
So those things have always remained here. One led to the other, Vilasini. I think my stint at Data Patterns, from there to building this whole facility, every brick here talks to me because I have built this, I've conceptualized this, I have built this, and I have been with this for so long that when I come in here, it feels like I've come into a temple, because it's for, I built it. It's a, the cliched word of work is worship and all that. This is my temple of worship or whatever it is. So when I come here, the minute I come here, I even notice even the small scratch or whatever it is, it's very, somebody does anything, I'm very, I get personally affected by it, because that's how, how deep the bond is, how close I am to whatever that we have built over here. So when we started building this facility, I sat them all down and I said, Ranga also said that we'll have to, document what we want to be in 1 year, 5 years and 10 years. We shouldn't build only for 1 year or 2 years. We have to build it for the 10th year, so that is the capacity that we should build. So we all sat down and we all dreamt of what we want to do in 1 year, in 5 years, and in 10 years. And that's how we conceptualized the premises, okay, the requirement,
Understood.
I would say.
Understood.
Okay, then we built, and then everything followed, from this place to the production side or whatever it is, slowly one thing led to the other. We were only, what should I say, honing skills and, maybe defining a few more things and all that, and making things better. Okay. Yeah. Polishing whatever that we had already done, some unpolished things and all that. So that way, the journey has been so nice that I can never, when I get out of data patterns, that is the premises over here, there's always like I've left home. So home away from home, they say, right? One home to another home. So we are here most part of our day.
I can imagine.
Okay, so it's like that for me.
Fully, I mean, it's a life given to data patterns, life given
Absolutely.
to India,
Yes.
life given to Make in India. One thing I wanted to ask you is that do you think starting up then and starting up today is a lot easier? Does the life of an entrepreneur, has it gotten easier?
See, the journey, I wouldn't say is easy. Okay. But, the means have really improved now, you have so many facilities that are available to the startups. Today, I think the culture of startups is really given a lot of encouragement. Okay, you're encouraged. Earlier they would say a business, no, you can't be in business, you better start working, you have a steady income and things like that. Then nobody encouraged, middle class families never really encouraged, businesses or starting off a new business or anything of that sort, because steady income was the need of the hour at that point.
Government job is the best, then maybe a private job
and a steady income. That is what it was. But today, that is not so, because I think, the children are really given wings to fly. And that way, it is much easier for them to also think, think creatively, or think what is it that I want to be, or what is it that I can create and all that, So their creative juices are not, are not clipped or curtailed. Okay, so I feel today's children have the means, okay, may not be the wherewithal. You're not born with, how to do, what to do. But then, of course, you're made to dream. You're allowed to dream. Yeah, so it is so nice. Correct? So at that point in time, when we started, families were very against, and I remember my father-in-law was very, very upset with Ranga, saying, what is this? What is wrong with you? You already are married and you don't have an income and all that. But my father stood by, Ranga, and when he was called by my father-in-law, he said, he thought he was being very encouraging, He said, sir, we are a middle-class Brahmin family, and if there is someone who's adventurous, and I think we should encourage that. So he was taken aback, he said, what is this? I asked you to come and to discourage him, and you're now encouraging him and all that. But that gave us, some encouragement or impetus or whatever to do whatever that we had, embarked on. But today, the parents are very, very, encouraging. Correct? And also the ecosystem around startups has really grown in India. It's not that you're left alone. There is funding available. There are VCs who are looking at, there are angel investors who are coming in and saying, okay, you have an idea, I will fund it. Things like that. Absolutely. Which was just not there during that time. Non-existent at your age. And totally, it is a new concept. Okay, probably that was there in the US, but never in India. So I think that is a big change. Correct? So you have an ecosystem which will help you. So that is, I think that's a big change that has come into India, and startups, will definitely benefit from whatever is available to them, and also they're made to dream. So that's one big thing, right? From product to services to anything that is...
anything. I mean, you can just solve any part of the pie. I think that is a very beautiful development that's happened.
Yes.
So today, finally, India is the 5th largest defense spender. almost 1.9% of GDP, and you're in that exact space that you can contribute to it. So I think it must be very exciting at one end. So I wanted to ask you what excites you, what worries you for the decade ahead. And you always say that Rangarajan sir looks at it 5 years hence, 10 years hence. So how are you looking at the future?
Yeah, see, the future seems very bright. Okay, we are looking at so many different, projects, so many different opportunities that are ahead of us. But today, the biggest thing that we want to do is we want to foray into the international market. We are looking at, going outside of India and not just depend on government spending here. Not that, we are going to ignore this. But international marketing is the focus as far as our strategy is concerned. So we're looking at markets outside. We're looking at building to spec, also looking at building products for them. Okay, and fielding it and things like that. So that is very exciting, So the international market hitherto has not been touched by us. We are looking at it because we have the products today. We can showcase. We can look at doing whatever. We can even do obsolescence management. Okay, which is a very big thing outside of India, and we have the capability to do it. So that is what is very exciting
so make
today.
in India for the world. So after Make in India for India, it's Make in India for the world.
Yeah, we will be made in India with pride for the world.
Amazing.
So
Amazing.
that's what is exciting. But fear is, of course, uncertainty is always there, right? With the geopolitics, and also the scenario in India. So yes, those are fears, but I wouldn't call it, a dampener. I would only say that, things will happen and this phase shall pass. That's what we are looking at. But feeling very charged, feeling very chuffed that we are, at a stage where we can do something better.
Yeah,
and
you're on a launch pad yourself.
Yes.
How are you looking at AI?
Oh yeah. AI, the bug has bitten us. Okay, so we realized that AI was a big revolution, if you ask me. So we decided that, we will face it in such a way that the first thing that we would do is, look at low-hanging fruits, mundane activities, all the routine ones or the ones that can be transactional ones. Yeah. We started, looking at tools that are available and all that, and started using a lot of tools, in doing, what should I say, culture analysis to attrition to, whatnot, the low-hanging fruits, right? But then we realized that AI can be used in our own, we all started attending seminars and looking at how it can be used, etc. So Vijay, who is our COO, he's the software guy, right? He's an inventor. So he was bitten by this bug, okay? He attended almost so many seminars, and the last one that he attended really showed case studies of how it can be used in a business. Okay. And he came back very excited, and we were already, experimenting with a lot of process improvements and all that. But then he said, I think we should do something which is going to be like a wave in data patterns. So we announced an AI hackathon.
Oh, interesting.
Okay. And we said we had some, 4-5, streams or topics that they could, come up with. But everything very relevant to our business.
To whatever you're doing.
Okay. Whether it's process, whether it's role, or whether it is improvement in something. And, there was a defined, the streams were all defined, and business cases. So they could come up with their own, and they had to just give us a synopsis of what they really wanted to do. And there was a jury that is now set up to actually see as to what are the 5-6 things that we can implement.
Fantastic.
Okay. And there was a prize money that was announced, and whoever wins this will become an implementer and will join the AI execution team in the organization. So that's how we have,
so empowering to hear. More power to you.
So that's how we have decided to harness this AI wave. And I'm telling you, it's bitten everyone. Yeah. Every small guy wants to do something on AI and, that. So it's really nice to see them becoming children again, looking at the new toy that they have. So that's how
lovely that they have the excitement to think that way.
Yeah.
So my last 2 questions are, around, you've been a torchbearer as far as insisting on working, insisting on supporting, being this excellent wife and taking yourself outside and all of that. Why is it important for a woman to be financially independent? I think that's one question I had. And two is, of course, what message do you have for our listeners? And
see, it is very, very important to be financially independent. I would say that the generation, my mother's generation, really didn't look at the world outside. Okay, for them, the world was inside. The family was their world. So being financially independent was really not, didn't give them so much joy, or it was not relevant. It was just that, my responsibility is to make home, or, keep the family in place, or, feed the family. There were simple responsibilities that they would take. But come our generation, my generation, not yours. Okay, we felt that, we were educated. Okay. And we said, look, we can also make, besides the house or the home, I think there's a life which we can also contribute, to the society at large, or the world at large, or whatever it is. I think it was like a crossover generation. If you are interested, if you want to be an engineer, you are an engineer. You want to be a doctor, you're a doctor. Or a chartered accountant or a financial professional. Then there was no, what should I say?
Demarcation or a discrimination.
Correct. The horizon was, wide open to anything, whether it is artist or anything, for that matter. So I think that is where the shift happened, and I feel that was required.
Much required.
Yeah, much required. And slowly, from one to the other, then, the movement of, equal pay and equal whatever it is, parity in pay, all that came into being. See, it is like an evolution.
Support system,
right?
Everything. It came one after the other, but I think now it's in a much
today,
better.
It is totally different, because today, when you raise a daughter, you're not raising her to just keep home. You're raising her to be financially independent, So whether, you like it or not, you will encourage your daughter-in-law, even if you have a son, you encourage your daughter-in-law saying, hey, you have to work. I mean, you have to be your own person and things like that, right? You have to be earning, and you have to take care of your own, not that you take care of your needs, but I think that independence is what is encouraged.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So I feel somewhere, the shift happened for the good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And today the world is different, right? Today, if you're not financially independent, you feel very stifled.
Yeah. And I think at every stage we have our elders to thank.
Absolutely.
The mothers and the mothers-in-law who just didn't stop us and, let us do whatever.
True. That they gave us the education that was required, for us to fly.
Yeah.
I think that made a huge difference. They never said, no, okay, you're a graduate now, okay, sit at home and do whatever. She said, okay, do whatever you want. I think you are your own person. I think that's where the shift happened. Okay, from my mother's generation to me, and to the next and the next. I think that's where the shift happened. And the message that I have for women is that,
I'd like to ask you one more thing. Women in manufacturing. What do you think about women in manufacturing? Are they still scarce, or has it become a level playing field?
See, there are some industries where women still are a majority. Okay. See, women like to do routine things, repetitive things. Okay, so I always felt that women in manufacturing will really contribute much more than a man would do, or a male would do, because we are all quite used to doing the routine, even like your cooking or whatever it is. When you leave home, you've left your home and you don't want to think. You want to do, a repetitive kind of a work. So, but in manufacturing, that's one thing that they do, they don't have too much, they don't have to think much, but on a shop floor, you're doing as per a process. So when we are so used to cooking, which is also as per a process, correct? That is also routine. So I think a woman automatically takes to a process-driven organization or a manufacturing unit where you have to do this day in and day out.
You see them come out. You see them come
today,
and take work.
In a lot of industries, yes, the electronic manufacturing line, there are quite a few women who are there. But in garment manufacturing, of course, that women are there, but industries that are
maximum.
Yeah, right. But
I'm
today
talking
in
about-
electronics, you will be surprised. There are a lot of girls who come. You
That
saw
is
so
good
many
to know.
soldering operators
Yeah,
also.
I didn't pay attention,
You didn't pay
unfortunately.
attention, but there are so many of them who are soldering operators who are, in my stores, who are, I take them because they I like them because they're very diligent.
Yeah.
They don't focus outside of their work. Whereas, the guys can be, a little more playful. But the girl or whoever we take, the female is very oriented, is very goal oriented, very, very dedicated to whatever.
If I'm spending that 6 hours here, I'd better make full use of it.
Absolutely.
6
of
hours,
the 6 hours or 8 hours or whatever that I'm working.
Yeah.
And, they're
Deliver the
very
value.
good workers. They're excellent workers, So that kind of a shift has happened in manufacturing as well.
That's good to know.
Not restricted to only a garment or, some small scale
in banking
businesses.
or financial services, which I represent, has a level playing field with, women
correct,
and everything.
Correct. So
finally, your message for us. Thank you so much for all the time. I mean, fascinating to go through your manufacturing entity and listen to your story. Thank you so much. Thank you. Always in gratitude for this.
Oh, no. It's been my total pleasure to host you, Vilasini. And the kind of, you brought back a lot of memories, which I had perhaps, some of it I had already forgotten. So I kept telling you stories and things like
but
that.
Every
because
story, it's just, it makes us remember an era almost, right? A BrahMos era or a ISRO era.
Correct.
Each one of it is so deep.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But that makes me also feel old.
You're evergreen, Rekha. No, I'm not going to.
No. But my message would be, don't lose your femininity. Today everything is about, I'll do what the man does. I don't think that's really required. A woman can make herself a place in the world by being a woman. Not just to say that, I will do whatever is required by a man. No, I think that femininity is required, that sensitivity is required, that intelligence is required, the right-brained, intuitions that we have are totally relevant and required. So I feel, in a bid to, become or do what the man does, we tend to forget a lot of these simple things that a woman enjoys, the joy to dress, the joy to do a lot of things. I think we kind of neglect all that, I think we should work and family and life and being a woman, everything should be in a perfect balance. I think that is when you start enjoying life. It's not that because somebody is doing, I need to do it. You feel good about something, you've got to do it. You want to dress well, nobody is stopping you from dressing well. But aping someone,
not necessary.
I don't think that's, that's a fair thing to do, because you'll never be yourself. When you're doing something that you're, doing for someone else or what someone else is doing. So I would tell the women that, feel free, feel good. You're in a generation which is recognized and which is also made to feel equal, when the generation which is, where your mother tells you there's no difference between you and your brother or between a husband and a wife. You're equal partners. And be happy. I think, life will give you what you really are passionate about and happy about. So I think a smile does it all. And being happy is what is required. Life is, life is a dream. Dream big. And that's what it is, So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Such a pleasure. Thank you so much for listening to yet another wonderful episode from VWP. It gives us enormous pleasure to create this content for you. If you enjoyed listening to the conversation, please hit the subscribe button and do let us know your favorite moments from the conversation. We would also love to hear if you have any guest recommendations for us. Of course, please don't miss our shorts section where we have our favorite moments compiled in bite-sized formats for you. So keep listening, keep growing, and do subscribe to the We Women Project. This is your host, signing off. Thank you.